Welcome to Hashtag Social Work Education, a computational analysis of social work schools and programs using Twitter. My name is Dr. Jimmy Young. Apologies if you hear any screaming in the background. It's just my adoring fans, otherwise known as my children. And just a quick note that the study's now been published in the Journal of Social Work Education. If you want to access that article, scan that QR code with your phone. So what is Twitter? Well, it's a microblogging social media platform that allows for communication, connection, and general information sharing. It can be used for professional networking, for lifelong learning, pedagogy, live Twitter chats, and so much more. So what does the social work literature say about Twitter? Basically, it's used as a pedagogical tool. And it's used for lifelong learning. And it's also used by nonprofit organizations for a host of different reasons, from digital activism and promotional activities. What we really don't know is how educational social work programs are using Twitter. And I utilized computational social science or data science principles to conduct a text and sentiment analysis of 26,000 tweets that spanned a 10-month period from September of 2016 to June of 2017. I used data science here because it allows for the analysis of big data sets that can be structured or unstructured to develop understanding, extract knowledge, and formulate actionable results. Because managing a large amount of social media data presents challenges around the sheer volume of the data, I randomly selected a sample of 10% of the tweets for the analysis. It's about 2,509 tweets. After collecting all of the tweets, I utilized the Information Community Action Framework from the nonprofit literature as my theoretical framework. Now, this allowed me to create an algorithm to perform keyword extraction and sentiment analysis. And the lexicon that I used is built into Microsoft's Azure Machine Learning Platform. I had to say that 3 times. So the initial data set of 26,000 tweets consisted of 103 programs, but after randomly selecting 10%, then cleaning up the data for things like active users and official programs, I ended up with 89 schools. You can see the geographic breakdown of the programs. Most of the schools contained a BSW, MSW, and PhD programs, and the average number of followers for the schools is 865, with the average number of schools following back other people on Twitter at right around 323. The average number of likes for a school is 387, and a majority of schools joined Twitter in the year 2012 or later. Now, the majority of these schools also tweet in the afternoon to evening hours. The computational thematic analysis using the Information Community Action Framework revealed that social work programs largely share content related to information, followed by content that promotes engagement or helps to build community. And occasionally, they tweet calls to action, they request donations, or other support from their online community. The overall sentiment or the tone of those tweets is largely positive, right around 57%. Engagement is defined as a metric that measures the level of engagement a piece of content or a tweet receives from an audience. This includes things like comments, shares, retweets, and even likes. And this metric provides some sense of how social work programs are using Twitter and whether or not they are connecting with their audience or their community. One of the metrics here that I think is particularly important is the use of hashtags, because they can help a tweet gain more attention. Another thing that's important is the @reply, because this illustrates the dialogic function of Twitter, where schools can @reply to other users on Twitter by including the little @ symbol and their name in a tweet, or they can use that to engage in a conversation with those Twitter users. Now, speaking of hashtags, the most widely used hashtag among this data set was macroSW, social work, and MSW. Given all of the data that I had gathered, I decided to also create a top 10 list of social work programs on Twitter. So I created the list based on certain factors in my data set, like the number of followers, number of likes, and other things, and created a general composite score for all of the schools that were in my data set. Then I ranked the schools to see who was using Twitter particularly well. So, from the home office in San Marcos, California, actually, you can see it on the slide right there, right? Basically, this is useful if you are interested in knowing what schools are using Twitter particularly well, what they're tweeting, then this is a good list to follow. Dialogue and engagement are essential characteristics for an organization adopting any social media platform. Now, utilizing the Information Community and Action Framework, social work education programs primarily share content on Twitter related to the theme of information. Over 62% of the the tweets related to this theme, which contains content related to the program's activities. Maybe they share things like job announcements, faculty research, or various workshops. These tweets are mainly a one-way form of communication from the program to the public. The next theme of community, that's 31%. These contain tweets related to the idea of building community and engaging with others. The final theme is action, and this represented just over 6% of the tweets in the dataset. Tweets in this theme have the goal of getting a Twitter user to do something like participate in a social justice campaign, donate money, or purchase goods. Action is less about informing and even creating a dialogue. Rather, it's mainly about getting their community of followers to become activists and donors. Now, social work programs have decent engagement from the community of users on Twitter, and programs are in fact utilizing hashtags and retweeting content. The overall sentiment of the tweets is positive, which is not surprising given our social work values encourage civil dialogue and professional communication. However, the findings of this study do suggest that dialogue is not a main function of social work programs and their use of Twitter. There may be many reasons for why social work programs are not using Twitter to its full potential, things like lack of resources or skills or just general knowledge among individuals that are tasked with using social media across various programs. Now, social work programs can leverage their own social work skills of community building, actually apply them online with whatever platform they choose. Setting some targeted goals and developing a specific strategy can help those programs use social media more meaningfully. One simple method for understanding Twitter better can be to see what other programs are doing and mirror some of those techniques. And a good list to start with is that top 10 list that I shared within this study. So the organizational literature has demonstrated the important use of social media in advancing the mission and directives of various organizations. Additionally, research suggests that communication, collaboration, creativity, problem solving, lifelong learning, and cultural awareness and ethical awareness, these are core digital skills that are needed in the 21st century. Social work education programs have the opportunity to model best practices for online engagement and information sharing, but clearly more needs to be done. My references, if you want to, you can obviously reach out to me on Twitter at JimmySW or send me an email jyoung@csusm.edu. Thanks for watching my presentation.